Guys, in this episode of Life in France, I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons why I love my life in France. Hello everybody, welcome to Life in France. I'm Mark and welcome to our channel, Life in France. Life in France versus life in the UK. In today's video of Life in France, I'm going to go through my favourite things I love about living in France. Because, I've talked about recently some of the things that irritate me, but I haven't really gone into depth as regards to what I love about France. And I do love France. I started my new life in France in 2006, so I've been here for 15 years now. And I'm going to give you a few things in this video of what I really appreciate about my life in France. I guess the first thing is time. I mentioned this in a previous video, but everything is so relaxed in France. And the one thing that I've noticed from my life in the UK compared to France is how much time I have to enjoy my family. And that's the biggest factor for me about enjoying my life in France. The boys are young at the moment and they only go to school 4 days a week. So we get Wednesdays with them as well as the weekends. They also have a long lunch at home, and that sort of thing doesn't really go on in the UK. And it's just beautiful, and that's one of the things I love about France. Basically, how much time you have and how relaxed everything is. Obviously, you've got to weigh up the pros and cons with that relaxation element, because sometimes in France, you could be waiting a long time for anything to happen and get done. But it all comes down to what you want in life. I've given up the rat race in the UK to enjoy a quiet life in France, and I love it here for that reason. Secondly, the French people. There's no animosity whatsoever from the French towards me being an Englishman. I've been here 15 years and I've never felt any animosity coming from the French. The only problems I have are probably some of the English people that are here. The French themselves, I never feel any animosity coming from them at all. A lot of people think, oh, the French hate the English and the English hate the French. That's not the case. I've been really welcomed to France by the French. Even though, I can't speak fluent French, I give it a go. And they really appreciate the fact that I do give it a go. And they help me out. And, there's never been an issue. There's only been one time where someone had a problem with me, and that was in the gym in Pontivy. And I just think that was an idiot with a chip on his shoulder. I don't think it was anything to do with me being English. It was the fact that I was the strongest guy in the gym, and he just had a chip on the shoulder for that reason. So in 15 years, I've never felt any animosity about being English and living in France. So if you are looking to start a new life in France, don't worry about that, because the French welcome you with open arms. The other thing I love about France are the beaches. I'm an Essex boy originally, and to give you an example, it takes about an hour to get to Southend. And we used to have a caravan on the opposite side of Southend at All Hallows, one of these static caravans. And as a kid, we used to have holidays there every school holiday, and all I did was fish. When the tide was in, we did beach casting. When the tide was out, we'd go out digging up worms. And the mud there was literally mud. And the beaches were pretty grotty. But, within an hour drive from where we are in the Morbihan section of Brittany, southern Brittany, there's so many beaches to enjoy. I guess Brittany is very close and similar to Cornwall, in that, Cornwall has some beautiful beaches in the UK, and Brittany is very similar sort of coastline to Cornwall and Devon. And we've got some fabulous beaches. They're never overcrowded, and they're just a joy to go to. And the kids now, they go out and build sandcastles and enjoy surfing on the waves, and we just love it. There's so much to do, and a beautiful coastline to go and see and enjoy. Guys, another thing I love about living in France, obviously the food. You tend to have a lot of choice in France. If you go to a supermarket or a fishmonger's, they tend to have so much more available as regards to what you can choose to eat than you do get in the UK. And the crazy thing is, a lot of the seafood that we do have in France to enjoy is probably caught off the English coast. But the English palate, we don't tend to like the fish because they look a bit strange, some of them. But you get that huge selection of fish in France. And also with the meats, you know, not so much at the supermarkets, but if you go to a butcher's, you can get some real prime cuts of beef or different kinds of meat. And the quality is just unsurpassed. As regards to eating in restaurants, again, I just love the food in France. Although I do miss the variety that you get in the UK. You know, the one thing I've noticed living in France is you don't get many Indian restaurants, and you don't get much selection of different kinds of restaurant. There are a lot of Asian restaurants in France, but you know, there's a lot of French. There's no fish and chip shops, which I've mentioned before. And that's the one thing I used to enjoy going down to the coast in England, was to have a fish and chip supper at the end of the day. And that's the one thing that we do miss in France, because you can't get that fish and chip supper. Guys, one of the big things that I love about living in France is the cost of property. Now, I've done a video on this in the past, and I'll just reiterate, you can get so much more for your money in France than you can in the UK. You know, I gave up a 4-bedroom house in Cambridgeshire that was costing me £1,200 a month for a mortgage, and I've exchanged that for 3 houses in France with a swimming pool, large garden, and it's actually generating me a living. It's generating a living that enabled me to semi-retire at the age of 40. And that's what I love about my life in France. What you can get for your money with regards to properties, because it gives you more options. You know, when you're in the UK working, with large mortgages to pay for, you've got to work long hours to pay all the bills just to get by. But if you can reduce one of the biggest expenses that you have each month, i.e. your mortgage or your rent, then you don't have to work so hard. And what money you do have goes a lot further. And that's one of the things I love about France, in that, you know, you're enabled to get a lot more for your money, property-wise, in France than you can in the UK. Do you know, I always remember a conversation I had with one of my clients probably 20 years ago. Myself and him were based in the south of England, where property prices were quite expensive. And he turned round to me one day and said, "Mark, you know, I'm fed up with all the overtime I'm having to work just to pay my bills, just to keep everything ticking over each month. You know, I've just started a family and I'm not getting to enjoy my children. And I just feel like selling up and buying a house outright up in Scotland, taking an easier job with no overtime, just so that I can spend the time with my family." And that started me thinking, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to start a new life in France. He actually didn't go to Scotland, but he started a new life in New Zealand, and he's loving it out there. And I think everyone has to chase their dreams, and that's the one thing I always encourage everyone to do. And particularly when my boys get older, you know, I'm going to always say to them, there's nothing you can't achieve in life. If you want to set yourself a goal, write it down and go for it. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this short video on life in France and what I love about my life in France. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget, hit that red button so you don't miss any future releases. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody.